So thank you very much. I am developer Steve, also known as Stephen Cooper, and I'm going to share today, well, part of why I became a dev and how I became a dev, and most importantly, how I became a full stack developer. I think the last few days, well, the last day has been pretty good. Like yesterday, there were some amazing talks that sort of delved into the space of, go forth and build and play and have fun in the open source world, because there are so many ways for you to be able to build some really, really, really cool stuff, and technology excites me. Just before we begin, so I am a senior evangelist with Xero. So an evangelist basically goes out and hangs out in developer communities, becomes part of developer communities throughout, well, wherever I need to go. Previously, I was at PayPal, covering basically all through Asia Pacific. I was able to be part of some really amazing communities and connect with a whole bunch of different developers, mentoring and doing all sorts of really cool things. That involved a little bit of travel. So this is my stats as of this morning. This is actually using a TripIt, for those that are familiar with some travel programs or some online travel services. But yeah, using TripIt and connecting that to Jet It Up, this is my current stats. So I've basically been around the world 10 times, over 10 times now, just being able to connect to developers all over the place. I have been on a lot of flights. Yeah, and being able to be part of some amazing events. So not only events like this one, which everyone should give a round of applause to the organizers again, because like seriously, these events take a lot to put on. So big clap. Woo! But that's also, so I've been part of hackathons, a part of conferences, and doing things like mentoring and thought leadership. And the thought leadership stuff is just thinking about ways to use technologies that people previously haven't looked at. For instance, later this week, I'm in Auckland talking about using machine learning to do API error handling. And for me, like at Xero, looking through some of the API logs of some of the API calls that people make, there's consistent errors that we could easily handle, and something I've already been talking to the API team about, using the likes of machine learning to be able to do that, just through pattern recognition and also some deep learning, which is pretty exciting. As a geek, I love that stuff. And also developer engagement activities like our Developer TV, which if you're not already subscribed, there's some great stuff in there. There's actually Dan Young, the head of the API team, does some amazing puns, like way better than mine, I promise. And stickers and swag. No doubt you've seen the big pile of stickers that are sitting in the other, was it the lab room just across the hallway? That's my bag. That's 2 kilos of stickers from like some amazing companies. So if you haven't already gone to go check that out, grab some for your laptop. And I've got some Xero ones too, so if you want some of those, come up and see me. And of course, promoting things like our APIs. So Xero has some really, really cool APIs, which is fun to use. Be able to seamlessly automate a whole bunch of stuff for users, which is really cool. And then, of course, once you do that, we can chat about getting that onto the marketplace. Growing audience, that will basically get you in front of, say, over 800, that's actually updated numbers, over 800,000 subscribers globally. So this is a cool startup that came out of New Zealand and is basically spread throughout the world. And we're hiring, so if you're looking for a job, let's chat. Although that is Melbourne and Wellington mostly, but yeah, we can still chat. At the end of the day though, I'm a developer, like that's where I came from, that's where I started. Well, I actually started as an analyst before I was a developer. I mean, I was a developer, I didn't quite realize in my mind, and the things that I was doing in code to be able to facilitate some of the things I was doing with a whole bunch of different data sets was something that anyone could do. Anyone could write, in my mind, anyone could write the things that I was writing to be able to automate and sort of do my daily job as an analyst. But I was an analyst for a really big Australian company. Mostly that involved moving a lot of data around. So I quickly started to realize that I was moving large data sets through several core system platforms. So inside big organizations, what often happens is there's these really, really big customer data sets or data sets that basically have to be manually handled or handled through batch jobs through various core systems just to make business happen, just to make the internal workings of a company happen. That's what I did as an analyst, was I'd take it out of one system, match it to another one, and then match it to another one, and however many I needed to move around, like that's what I did. After a while, I started to notice that there had to be a better way. Surely, everything's on computers these days. Computers can handle this stuff, surely. As a developer, that's an easy problem to solve because I can look at the data set and go, well, yeah, I can take it out of here and then automate some scripts over here and work with the technologies I needed to work with and learn to be able to do that. And in effect, automate my manual job, because yeah, nobody's got time for that. While that's happening over here automatically, I can go and learn this other thing and then do these other things. Like I can start to build on things that I would do on a daily basis. That basically makes you realize, you want better answers, ask better questions. That's what it all fundamentally comes back to, is you notice these problems, then start to identify what you need to ask to get a better answer to solve that problem. And keep it simple. Seriously, this one is like the golden rule to like anything you do. Like, don't overcomplicate code that you don't need to overcomplicate. Get the job done, but don't do it in a way that's going to make it sort of this huge, massive process if it doesn't need to be. Keep it simple. At the end of the day, when things fail, and generally Murphy's Law says that they will fail, and I've been half the way through a bottle of wine on a Friday night when the client rings up and says the server's just died because, reasons. This is going to save your life in the end. So for the analyst side of things, what I ended up doing was basically building a CRM. So I was pulling out these massive data sets, and you're looking at like 500,000 rows of data just at a customer level, beyond any sort of customer transaction level, which was in the millions. What I ended up doing to solve that problem was rebuild a CRM, which kind of seemed a little bit unnecessary given that this was for a really big Australian company. But at the end of the day, that's what I ended up doing just to get the job done. The downside to that was internally, like it was doing the job of like 8 people, and I actually had the stats to sort of back that up. When it came time for annual review, it's the type of thing someone looks at and goes, well, it's not really a documented process. Like you've built all this stuff that's great, and like literally I was sitting in an entire room full of computers like automating things that I was supposed to be doing manually, but you get little recognition from that. Also, as a developer, or as an early developer, even though I was still of that mindset of, I'm an analyst, but I can write code to sort of get things done, I wasn't getting a lot of recognition for that internally. And also being able to pit my own skills as a developer to the test and be able to sort of match that against industry-wide stuff, which sort of led me into the freelancing world. So here I was writing purely back-end code at the time. And I thought, well, I want to see, as a developer, how I can increase my skills, how I'm going industry-wide. If I need to go, like, leave being an analyst and know how those skills, pit against my peers, I want to know how I'm doing. Freelancing was a great way to do this because I could take on really low-cost jobs to build up not only my personal portfolio, but also sort of put those skills to the test and get a feel of, will this work for me? Is this something I can do full-time? Aside from doing the freelancing side of things, you can build your own e-commerce sites. And like this is going back a few years now, but you can quite easily, and using open source technology, you can build your own e-commerce sites really, really easily. You can even do your own marketing, which is why that site doesn't look, it's not too crash up. But yeah, this was one of my first e-commerce platforms, and it was basically selling, of all things, kawaii sticky tape. So these are the little sticky tapes that, little Japanese-styled sticky tapes, they sell for about $5. I was buying those for 20 cents each from Japan, and then marking them up, selling them here. It's great. They take up like hardly any space, really, really easy to sell. These are the type of really basic ideas you kind of look at and go, well, yeah, I can buy it from here in bulk, and then bring it into Australia and sell it here, like really, really easily, really cheaply, and without much fuss. And then PayPal came along with the developer days. This was in 2009 when they first launched their developer days out in Australia. And I thought, I hadn't been to any industry type events. And yesterday, the number of the speakers were saying, get out to industry events and network and connect with other people. This was where one of the first events that I went to and was able to do that fully. These type of events are really, really important to be able to connect with industry-wide people and build your network out. The networking side, super, super critical, particularly in the development world. You're going to find all sorts of opportunities where you'll be able to connect with all sorts of industry peers and exchange ideas, which is, that's part of what it's all about. But I still had this mindset of I'm no developer. At the end of the day, like I was an analyst writing code. In my mind, anyone could do that. And it was kind of scary because at one stage, after the developer days in Australia, PayPal Australia, so PayPal in Sydney, reached out to me and said, hey, we love what you're doing. We know you've got a few e-commerce sites and you're sort of doing some freelancing work. We want to send you all expenses paid to PayPal Innovate in San Francisco. Here I was, a full-time analyst who dabbled in code, and this big industry-wide conglomerate sort of reached out and said, or a big industry-wide company, reached out and said, hey, we believe in you as a developer. We want to send you all the way around the world, all expenses paid, to attend this conference as one or two developers from Australia. So after I picked myself up off the floor, like literally, I was sitting in a room, I still remember it, surrounded by all these computers sort of automating my manual day job. And I get this phone call saying, hey, we want to send you blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, you sure you got the right number? So sitting on a flight all the way around the world in the back of my mind, and this is classic imposter syndrome. I'm thinking, I shouldn't be here. I don't write code. I'm not a developer. Sitting in the audience, 5,000 people, half a world away, at an industry-wide event, people from all over the world, like developers from everywhere, thinking, I shouldn't be here. I'm not a developer. I don't write code. The pivotal moment during that first day was that I realized, not only anyone can write code, nobody can write it like me. That was the pivotal moment, is anyone can write code, but no one's going to look at it the same way that I do. And that just comes from not only experience, but also being able to, as a developer, sort of grow and understand different languages, like starting off with one core language and then building from that. Even things like pair programming. Everyone here doing pair programming, this is super, super important. Everyone should be doing it. Find a friend. At this conference, network. Find a friend, do pair programming. Practice your skills as a developer. Like, this is super, super critical, because this is what's going to be able to help you not only exchange ideas with each other, and there could be something you're doing that other people don't even think of. Like, they'll look at something and say, well, yeah, but I just do it that way. Like, this is what that starts to encourage. A new thing that come out of the US, and this is something I've been talking about with my friend Lynn Langett out of the US, is mob programming. So this is where you have one person, small team, one person has control of the keyboard, big screen, and everyone sort of injects ideas into that one person, and then you switch. So it's on a timer. You have a timer of the person with control of the keyboard, and you change people around depending on sequence, on who's going to take control. Again, a really good way to be able to exchange ideas with other people. And the most important, personal projects. Like, even in university now, you can be building out your own projects and having examples on GitHub, and that was something that came out of yesterday as well, was have these examples, these thoughts in code about how you're using code, just contributing to even some of the open source projects or helping with testing on the open source projects. Like, getting involved with community stuff, super good way to be able to build your portfolio out and really build that branding. And it really does start with an idea. Like, you can just take an idea and sort of build it out, and it'll be something that you've noticed a need for, or something you'll be able to use. There's a whole bunch of different projects I've worked on over the years, or I've built out over the years, that literally just came from something that I looked at and went, well, I want to do this with it. It doesn't do it. No, it has an API. I can just build it. Like, those really basic early things, like amazing companies come out of that. Everyone knows of Slack, right? Everyone using Slack? Yeah, everyone knows of Slack. That came out of a failed startup. So that was something that internal devs for the company it came out of was using, and look at it now. Like, this was something they recognized there was a need for, and they built it out, because in the developer world, that's what we do. That's what we can do. And don't be afraid to get people, get the no. Everyone knows who that is, I'm sure, Colonel Sanders. He had 1,009 no's before he actually sold his chicken. I mean, he believed in this idea so much that he kept going. So every time someone would say, no, that's not going to work, he still kept going with it and be able to build that idea out. Jack Ma, so Alibaba, really amazing guy. This guy was actually, when KFC first opened in Hong Kong, there was 25 people that applied for the job. 24 got the job, and it wasn't him. So don't be afraid to be, the only one that gets told no. That, you can persevere from that and build from it and learn from it as well. One of the early ideas I had and originally built out was just something that had actually come out from some functionality I needed from a number of e-commerce sites I was running at the time. So every time I would launch a new e-com site, and it might have even been just something I was using every day that I could buy wholesale because I needed it, and then other people started buying it from me as well. is you set up social media accounts. So you end up with 8 or 9 different social media accounts for each e-com site you want to run. What I did was I developed this process. So I had a script running that would watch my main Twitter account, and as soon as I tweeted something with a particular hashtag, this process would identify the tweet, delete it, and move it to a subsequent account. So I could tweet hashtag ecom, ecom site, and it would delete it from that and move it across to whatever site it was applying to. Some people that were following me at the time started to notice what I was doing, and they wanted to use it. And I was like, well, you're processing time, and it'd be a service that I could sort of set up and start to sell, which sort of spawned this. It was basically like similar to a very basic Hubot system quite a few years ago, that you could plug different functions into on Twitter and social media to be able to sort of generate different experiences. So you could run campaigns, you could do what I call tag it, you could hashtag a particular account and gain a point for every time you tag that person with that particular hashtag. Like, there was a whole bunch of different functions you could plug into this Twitter engine. Just a really basic idea that you could start to build out and really add to your portfolio. The end of the day, though, for me at this time, like, I was still an analyst. I wasn't a full-time dev, and as an early developer, even though I started to think like a dev and started to be a dev, I was still an analyst. Like, I wasn't full-time yet. I wasn't yet out in the industry. And it kind of reached a point where I was like, well, I've got to either take the plunge or be a really, really good analyst. Well, I was anyway, but still, I was wanting to get out and do full-time dev, which led me just to digital agency. And this is a great way to really, really put your developing to the test. Like, agency world is like a whole other world. It's basically like organized chaos. That's the way I used to look at it. Well, you do a whole raft of different things, everything from quoting, and this is irrespective of the developer side. In agency world, you're going to be pulled into sales meetings, you're going to be taken in front of clients, and they'll have all sorts of crazy ideas that you've got to not only quote on, so put a value against, but also a timeline as well, which means you start doing project management. In a senior level, you also start to get staff, so you have to start managing staff, which is a whole other thing, because normally as a dev, like, you're writing your own code, then all of a sudden you're writing everyone else's code or reviewing everyone else's code. Like, there's a whole other world just in that itself. Being a full stack dev, so doing the back end side of things and also the front end side, and then the sysops side, and whatever other gaps you needed to fill in that process, just meant that I had the full suite of being able to see the end to end of the project and then all the bits during the project as well. On the front-end developer side, raft of different languages. Any front-end devs in the audience? Too soon? Yeah, kind of. In the front-end developer side, it's not only just also looking at some of the front-end languages and dealing with Angular and all the different front-end technologies, but also the UX, UI side as well. Also looking at the contextual experience and the user journey. And for me, front-end dev in this aspect has always been, I always see this as a bit of a movie. You want the user to have a nice journey through the experience on the site. And then at the end, you want to make sure they're not left in a place where they're kind of thinking, yeah, did I really want to watch that? You want to bring them back to a point that makes sense for them to be able to experience that whole journey again. At Xero, we do like a whole bunch of that. We have teams set up to basically look at this. Like, we do beautiful accounting software, from the reconciliation side of things right through to the dashboard. Super, super critical. Recently at XeroCon, we actually announced also doing a chatbot, which started to move the interface not only from that contextual experience, but also typing as a UI, which starts to bring you into a textual user experience as well. We've seen the rise of that over the past, for a while now, back in the IRC days, for anyone that knows IRC, some really basic chat interfaces. But yeah, it really does start to reshape how the contextual interface versus the textual interface is starting to behave, particularly with the onset of some of the chatbots. You want a nice sort of textual interface designed so that users don't have to know or preemptively know the way to engage and get the information from the experience they're looking at. It's all about, in a contextual interface, you do that through just a button. So you look at a website, you know the section you want to go to, you know the experience you want to trigger, the information you want to retrieve. You look at the UX, and you know that there's a button sitting on the top left. I need to click that button. In a textual interface, you need to know the right question. You need to know the right way to engage. making that experience nice and seamless and user-friendly, that's the next piece of that user engagement. On the back-end development side, I mean, there's a raft of different languages you can look at using, just depending on how you need to support the development side you're going through. I love this video. This video is cool. Is it playing? There it is. And I've got no one particular language I'll sway towards. I will use the PHPs. I can use Python. I like Ruby. Ruby's really cool. I like Ruby. Just depending what I need to get the job done, and then support it. Yeah, I like that video. And then, of course, the flip side of that is also the DevOps side, which is something that basically came about just from needing to support a lot of these experiences that I was building for the likes of Samsung and some of the really big companies that needed the back-end grunt to be able to deliver really, really big campaigns. And like that was also Whiskers, so developing GPS cat trackers for Whiskers, which was really cool. But yeah, building the ops for me to be able to be able to deliver those type of experiences, started to look at things like scalable stacks. So, and for those in the workshop yesterday, I basically showed you how to build your own LEMP stack on Amazon. Really, really easy. Like I can spin those up in about 20 minutes. And yesterday we went through how to do that, how you build those stacks. But at the end of the day, as a dev, I mean, I build my own sandboxes. Like I don't have to use someone else's playground. I control these environments that I got to play in. For those, and I know students just starting out, there's some really great ways to do this for like free. So Amazon, for instance, has a free tier that you can use for a year, and that builds you like a LEMP stack on a really basic micro instance that'll handle millions of hits a day if it needed. Hopefully by that stage, you're making enough money to be able to scale that up, because you will need to. But that's a great way to get started and really vet an idea. LEMP stack, basically Nginx, MySQL, PHP, Python, Ruby, like whatever you need to run on it to get the job done, you can quite easily. And at this stage, it is just about building that idea and testing that theory. And then server monitoring. So this is important as you scale your infrastructure. New Relic do this amazingly well as well. And again, it's all free. You can use these tools really, really, really easily. Even lets you plug in things like Internet of Things. Amazon has a whole platform for this. A lot of the scaled infrastructure platforms do. And IoT, for those that haven't looked into it yet, is like a whole other world of users to engage you. Like that is a whole world unto itself, particularly with these things. These things are amazingly cool. These are the ESP8266 chips. They're worth $2. They have Wi-Fi baked into them. Like it's this thing, you can do just about anything with it. The world is your oyster with that one. Agency world was amazingly fun. A really great way for me to test my skills as a dev. DevRel, whole other world. Like, I wouldn't even go into what that looked like, which I got to do with this amazing team, and I'm doing it now with this amazing team. Final words. I'm going to leave you with, people normally recommended reading. I'm going to leave you with recommended viewing. So this movie, if you haven't seen it yet, highly recommend it. This is the story of where the tech industry began. This is the story of Apple and Microsoft and where it all started. I like this one. This one was cool. For those that have seen Jobs, I'd put that after this movie. It kind of goes into a different perspective, covers the same type of topics. I'm guessing you're all watching this one because that one's a really good one. Silicon Valley, like in the startup world, that's it's so close. And of course, Developer TV. Xero's Developer TV. You've got to be watching that one. Anyway, you can subscribe. So anyway, go forth and build amazing things. Going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes. The 3 most dangerous things in the world are a programmer with a soldering iron, a hardware engineer with a software patch, and a user with an idea. And all of you, everyone's that. Because totally, you could build some amazing things. That's kind of me. I don't think I have many time left for questions. Oh, 1 or 2 questions. Oh. 3 minutes before. That was an hour-long talk, condensed down. Woo! Any questions? Yay, there's one. Hello.
Did you find that when you were working as an analyst, you would have any organizational difficulties with getting into more dev work, or just a natural progression?
I kind of did it covertly because IT didn't really know I was running. Well, I'm sure they knew. They didn't want to know. I was running my own web servers on their network. So I kind of pushed the door open and ran in. But yeah, it was basically, I ended up building, as part of that the CRM, ended up building a whole bunch of sales reporting that just kind of meant sales didn't bug them about anything because they could run their own reports through me. And that was literally just a click of a button and a report would come out. So I guess I wasn't any sort of annoyance to the IT infrastructure. So yeah, kind of literally pushed the door open.
Okay.
That was a good question.
Sounds like that's all. So let's all give a round of applause to developer Steve.
Thank you.